Hello, guys, and welcome back to the Healthy Not Complicated podcast. Today's topic is going to be 10 daily habits you can start doing that will help you to reverse insulin resistance. If you guys are new to my podcast, if you're not familiar with my content on YouTube and Instagram, I specialize in helping people reverse insulin resistance. The first episode of this podcast actually went into basically everything you need to know to get started with reversing insulin resistance because, like I talk about all the time, insulin resistance is a condition caused by diet and lifestyle, and therefore it can be reversed by diet and lifestyle. And that's even if it's progressed to prediabetes or type 2 diabetes. You still can reverse it or put it into remission. And the point of this podcast, or I guess what I really want to highlight today, is that the changes you need to make in order to reverse it, they don't have to be complicated. It doesn't have to be some restrictive diet where you feel miserable all the time. If you can simply apply a handful of the habits that we're going to talk about in today's video, you're going to see some pretty big results pretty quickly. Now, I recommend going back and watching episode 1 if you haven't already, because like I said, in that video, I explain the cause of insulin resistance and go a little bit more into why it often gets missed, why a lot of people have insulin resistance and they don't realize it. And yeah, just kind of an overview of everything related to insulin resistance. So if you watch that first, the tips I'm going to mention in today's video, they're going to make a little bit more sense. Now, the way I've structured this video is it's going to be like as if you were going through a day. So the habits that we're going to talk about first, you're going to do in the morning, then the ones later we're going to talk about, you'll do in the afternoon, and then we'll finish off before bed. So that's the way this is going to be structured. And we're going to start off with number one. Number one is hydrating in the morning with electrolytes and also taking apple cider vinegar. Now, I'm going to break down why both of these are important. Obviously, all of us know that hydration is key for just overall health. It's especially key when you are having issues regulating blood sugar, as people with insulin resistance are experiencing. But where a lot of people go wrong is that they're simply just drinking plain water. And this is an issue because when you drink water on its own without electrolytes in it, you're basically diluting the electrolyte concentration in your body. You ideally want to, all the water you consume throughout the day, you want to have with some electrolytes in it as much as possible. If you are someone who thinks that you drink a lot of water and you're always running to the bathroom, you always have to pee, but you think you're very hydrated, this is actually because your body is trying to even out the ratio of water to electrolytes. And this shouldn't be an issue if you're getting enough electrolytes in with your water. Every day, I recommend starting with 400 to 500 milliliters of water. And you want to add a high quality electrolyte supplement into this. By that, I mean one that doesn't have added sugar, doesn't have artificial sweetener, and that actually has a decent amount of electrolytes. A lot of the ones on the market, they're overpriced and they don't actually contain the ideal ratio of electrolytes that we require. So the one that I personally use and recommend is from Sodi. It's their everyday hydration salts. Like I said, no added sugar, no filler ingredients. It has a decent amount of sodium, which a lot of them miss out on, and sodium, very important. It also has potassium and magnesium, and it has these electrolytes in the ratios that are optimal for everyday use. So start your day with electrolytes, and then the second part to this is you want to add a tablespoon of apple cider vinegar. Now, if you haven't heard me speak about apple cider vinegar before, it's very interesting, and this is one of my favorite hacks, if you will, for controlling blood sugar and reversing insulin resistance. Vinegar actually works in a way that helps our cells become more insulin sensitive. It has been pretty heavily researched. There's some solid evidence supporting this, and you can run these tests by yourself by using a blood glucose monitor or a CGM. If you eat the same meal 2 days in a row and before one of those meals, you take a tablespoon of apple cider vinegar, you're going to see that your blood sugar response to that meal is going to be significantly lower. And this is because, like I said, vinegar helps your cells to absorb glucose more readily. And of course, when we're insulin resistant, that is the main problem, is that our cells aren't taking in glucose as they should. So by starting your day with a tablespoon of apple cider vinegar, diluted in water, you can have it in with the electrolytes. This is going to help to start your day with your insulin sensitivity a little bit higher. And obviously later on when you have your first meal, this is going to help. Apple cider vinegar can also help to reduce cravings. So if this is something you struggle with, then this is just going to start you on the right foot in the morning. Moving on to habit number 2, you're going to want to go for a morning walk. And this is for a few different reasons. One of the main ones is actually not what you might expect, but going for a morning walk can help to improve your sleep later that night. It can help you fall asleep at the correct time and stay asleep and improve your sleep quality. Now, the reason that this happens doesn't actually have to do with the actual act of walking. It has to do with sunlight exposure. When we're exposed to sunlight close to sunrise, and it can't be through a window or anything like that because the correct wavelengths that you need, they don't go through glass. It has to be direct. When you're exposed to sunlight in the morning, it helps to sync your circadian rhythm. Sunlight is actually one of the biggest cues for our circadian rhythm. So by getting sunlight in the morning, this actually starts a timer for when sleep hormones are going to be released later that evening. I try to do this personally every single morning. This is as someone who's not insulin resistant, but it's just so good for your overall health. Having a good circadian rhythm that's in sync, having good sleep quality and good sleep hygiene, this actually makes a bigger difference than most people realize. And this is because when we don't get proper sleep, this actually makes us temporarily more insulin resistant the following day. So of course, if you already have insulin resistance, it's only going to be worse. And if you're someone who is metabolically healthy, then you're going to be slightly more insulin resistant the next day. Poor sleep also impacts other hunger hormones. It impacts ghrelin and leptin. Ghrelin increases, so you're hungrier. Leptin decreases, so it takes more for you to get full. All of this, obviously, not ideal if you're trying to stick to healthy eating habits. Now, of course, the act of walking itself is also going to be beneficial because when we're exercising, when we're moving, our cells can take in glucose without insulin. So this is beneficial because for reversing insulin resistance, we want to try to keep our insulin low as much as possible. And obviously, exercise, I'm sure you're aware, has been shown to improve insulin sensitivity too. So by going for a simple, it can be 15 minutes, it can be 20 minutes. If you want to walk for longer, that's fantastic if you have the time. But really, you need about 15 to 20 minutes of light exposure in the morning in order to get those cues for your circadian rhythm. Habit number 3 is to delay your caffeine consumption. And by this, I mean you don't want to drink coffee or have any caffeine until at least 90 minutes after you wake, ideally 120 minutes. By doing this, the caffeine is actually going to be more effective. When you do drink it, it's going to help you to be more energized, more alert. When you drink it too early in the morning, it actually suppresses certain hormones. It's a little bit hard to explain, but basically if you have caffeine too early in the morning, you have this buildup of adenosine, and the caffeine blocks your receptors. So by the time the caffeine wears off, you're going to be more tired. If you wait until your levels have went down before you have the caffeine, then like I said, it's going to be more effective. And obviously this is just going to start you again on the right foot to feeling better throughout the day. It's going to be easier to stick to these habits, to make good choices when you're not feeling tired and sluggish. Now, habit number 4, we're moving into whenever you're going to have your first meal. So I know a lot of people like to practice intermittent fasting. They either skip breakfast altogether or push it back a couple of hours. But no matter if you're fasting or not, whenever you have your first meal, you want to make sure that you have at least 30 grams of protein. And this is a lot more difficult. Well, it's not difficult, but a lot of people don't realize how little protein they're eating, not just at breakfast, but all throughout the day. 2 eggs, for example, has about, I think it's like 12 or 14 grams of protein. So this is not enough protein. You need to be having double that. And I know the thought of having 4 or 5 eggs, not really what everyone wants to have for breakfast. Personally, I could do it. I love eggs. But if you want to not have 5 eggs for breakfast, just pair your protein sources, add some cottage cheese, add some Greek yogurt. You can add some bacon that doesn't have added sugar, or some sausages without added filler, smoked salmon, anything like that. You can pair protein sources, but you want to make sure you're getting at least 30 grams of protein. If you can get 40 or 50 grams of protein, even better. And this helps for a few different reasons. First off, it's going to help to lower your blood sugar response to the meal because protein actually slows down the digestion of carbohydrates. So when digestion is slowed down of carbs, then there's less of a blood sugar spike, less insulin is needed all at once, and this helps to improve insulin sensitivity. Protein also helps to keep you fuller for longer. So if you're someone who always feels like they have to snack in between meals, then try upping your protein. Make sure you're getting at least 30 grams in, and I can almost guarantee that urge to snack is going to go away. Beyond that, protein is absolutely key for maintaining and building lean muscle. And where this comes into insulin resistance is the more muscle mass you have, the more room on your body you have to store glucose. And if you have more room for the glucose to spread out, then less insulin is needed all at once. And again, going to be very beneficial. Now, I'll say along with that, if you can eat less carbs at breakfast, that's going to be ideal. If you do want to just pair the protein with carbs, that's fine as well. But what you want to avoid is having carbohydrates in isolation at breakfast. So anything that's like a lot of the typical breakfasts, cereal, oats, toast, anything like that, mainly carbs, very little protein, very little fat. And when you eat these foods on an empty stomach, as you are first thing in the morning, they're also absorbed and digested more rapidly. So the blood sugar spike is going to be even more significant than it would be later in the day. But really the key here is to just make sure you're getting the protein in. Tip number 5 is some other supplements that are worth including, one of which being vitamin D3, the other one being iodine, and then magnesium. All of these nutrients can help to improve insulin sensitivity. They help to regulate blood sugar. Just you have better blood sugar control in general when you're not deficient in these nutrients. And these are nutrients that a lot of people are deficient in. So when I say vitamin D3, if it's summertime and you're getting adequate sunlight exposure on your bare skin without any sunscreen, not burning, but getting a little bit of a tan. If you're getting enough vitamin D in, then you don't need to supplement. But if it's winter or if you're not getting that sunlight exposure, then supplementing a D3 supplement is going to be beneficial. And you want to choose one that also comes with vitamin K2 as well, because that helps with absorption. Now, the second supplement I recommend is iodine, especially if you don't eat seafood or don't eat a lot of seafood. So many people are deficient in iodine, women especially, and this leads to a lot of thyroid problems, but also problems with insulin and blood sugar. I'll put a link in the show notes to the iodine supplement that I recommend. It's as simple as taking 2 drops of iodine in water every single day. And the reason why I recommend taking the iodine now and not first thing in the morning is because you need selenium and other nutrients in order to absorb it correctly. So selenium, this is really easy to get as well. You don't need to necessarily get it in capsule form. If you eat 2 Brazil nuts a day with your iodine, this is going to help with absorption. Brazil nuts, they're fantastic, so beneficial, very, very rich in selenium. And like I said, it only takes 2. And then the other nutrient that I recommend supplementing is magnesium. Now, if you've already taken your electrolytes first thing in the morning, then you've already gotten a little bit of magnesium in. But if you want to take another magnesium supplement, this can help even more, because magnesium deficiency has been linked to insulin resistance. It's been linked to type 2 diabetes. So just making sure you're getting enough in, this can help. And then habit number 5 is to make sure you have healthy snacks ready, because as we spoke about earlier, if you're getting enough protein in, then the urge to snack is going to be less. But even still, especially if you've built that habit of always reaching for a snack, of always kind of grazing on things, it can be hard to break that habit when you're first starting out. So make sure you have good options available for when those urges do hit. Now, when I say good snack options, I'm mainly talking about things that are high in fat and high in protein. So nuts, like we just spoke about, those can be a good option. You can have some avocado. Berries can be okay. Opt for like blueberries, strawberries, raspberries. They're a little bit lower in sugar. And if you can pair these with something like a nut butter, that's fantastic too, because again, that will help to slow down digestion of the carbohydrates. Other snacks include high quality cheese. That's fantastic. Even some like beef jerky or pepperoni sticks that again, don't have any added fillers or added sugar, anything like that. That can be fantastic. Great source of protein that's going to help to kill your cravings. Having these on hand, I know it might seem like common sense, but this can make or break your results, because I know when those cravings hit, you just really want to reach for anything. And especially if you're insulin resistant, your cravings for carbs and sugar are going to be elevated, and especially when you're first starting out. Tip number 7 is when you have your next meal, make sure that you have protein and fiber at the start of it. What do I mean by this? So we spoke earlier about how protein slows down the digestion of carbohydrates, but fiber also helps this as well. And I will say here that fiber is an interesting one, because technically fiber is a carbohydrate, but because fiber is indigestible, it's a bit of a weird one. Basically, fiber goes through your system undigested, so it doesn't really count as calories or nutrients, if that makes sense. And I know a lot of people put heavy emphasis on making sure you get a lot of fiber in, but honestly, the research supporting fiber intake just isn't there. Everything supporting eating more fiber is more of a correlation between eating more fiber, eating more fruits and vegetables, and better health. And when you think about it, it's basically like saying just because people are not eating processed food, they're eating more whole foods, that's improving their health, and it's not necessarily the fiber. So I'm not anti-fiber by any means. I know some people go pretty hard into this, especially people in like the low-carb community. Fiber is technically a non-essential nutrient. We don't need to eat any in order to have good health, but where it can be beneficial is for slowing down the digestion of carbohydrates and helping to stabilize blood sugar, which of course is what we're talking about today. So when you have your next meal, try to eat protein and fiber at the start. If you are gonna have some carbohydrates, eat them after. And this can make a big difference on the blood sugar response, the insulin response to that meal. And this can be as simple as having some sliced cucumber before you eat your sandwich. Literally, it can be that easy. Habit number 8 is to get some additional movement in. So by that, it can be something like just taking another walk in the afternoon. Again, a 15-minute walk after lunch, that's going to be fantastic. Like I said earlier, when you're walking, when you're exercising, your cells are able to take in glucose without insulin. So especially if you do this right after you eat, this is going to help your body to better utilize the carbohydrates from that meal. Now, if you want to do another form of exercise, if you want to do some strength training, this can also be beneficial. But just really, if you can do any movement, even if you can just do a couple of squats, getting up from your desk when you're at work, if you can just do some lunges, if you can take the stairs, I know this is a little bit of a cliche, but park a bit further away, walk into the shops, take those extra steps, anything like that. There isn't a specific target, but basically, the more movement, the better. As I said, that's not necessarily true. You definitely can be overtraining and over-exercising, but little things throughout the day, the more you can do, the better. That's definitely true. Habit number 9 is to have your last meal at least 3 hours before you plan on going to bed. And this is very, very helpful because if you allow your body the chance to digest your meal before you go to sleep, you're going to recover better. You're going to have more restful sleep. Your body isn't going to be working to digest the food instead of trying to recover. this is one of the biggest things that impacts my sleep quality. I use a Whoop. I've talked about it before on my channel, which is basically a health and fitness tracker, and it monitors your stress levels throughout the day. Now, when I eat too close to bedtime, I have higher stress levels during the first part of my sleep. But if I can give myself at least 2 to 3 hours before going to bed, then my stress levels are very low right from when I get into bed. And this helps me to fall asleep faster. Again, it improves my sleep quality. I notice such a difference, and Whoop allows you to there's a journal entry you do every day, and you put in what time your last meal was at, and then it gives you statistics into how that impacted your recovery. Eating late and alcohol have the biggest negative impact on my recovery score by miles. It's crazy. So this is something personally I try to stick to just for overall health in general, but even more important when you're insulin resistant, because sleep is when your body is going to be repairing, when it's recovering. It really is so important, as I spoke about earlier, because if you can get proper sleep, you're going to be more insulin sensitive the next day, which is only going to help to stabilize your blood sugar. It's only going to help to improve your insulin sensitivity and help you to reverse insulin resistance. It seems so simple, but it's so much harder than a lot of people think. And well, I guess most people do know it's pretty difficult, because the amount of comments I get from people saying they have trouble sleeping, it's out of this world. And yeah, maybe I will do a whole podcast episode on sleep, because I have so many tips about how to improve your sleep quality, because I've tested so many things: mouth taping, blue light blocking glasses, like I said earlier, morning sunlight exposure. That again makes a really big difference, as proven by the results of my Whoop. And finally, number 10, which I guess we were just starting to touch on, is to have a proper wind down routine. So by this, I mean you want to limit your light exposure after sunset. Again, in the same way that light helps to sync our circadian rhythm in the morning, it actually suppresses melatonin and sleep hormones when you're exposed to it too late in the evening. And this is basically because your body thinks that it's daytime. So this doesn't have to be complicated. All you have to do is turn off any bright overhead lights, stick to lamps instead. If you have a pair of blue light blocking glasses, that can be a fantastic way to make sure you're not getting too much light exposure off your devices. Personally, I've been using a pair of glasses from Bon Charge for probably 5 or 6 years now. They are high quality, fantastic. I will link to them in the show notes. They also have a range of red light bulbs that you can put in your lamps and I guess you can put them in your overhead lights as well. I have a red light bulb in my lamp in my bedroom. So in the evening, I just have that on, and that's totally fine. That type of light doesn't impact your sleep. It doesn't suppress the sleep hormones. Trying not to do any work or emails late in the evening, or focusing on anything that's going to cause you to think a lot. This can help with your wind down. Taking a hot shower before bed. This has a massive impact on improving your sleep. And that's because it helps to, basically, if you have a hot shower, then your body rebounds and tries to cool your body. And this is what you want when you're falling to sleep. You want your body temperature to drop. So by having a hot shower, it rebounds and it comes down quicker than it would otherwise, helping you to fall asleep faster. Again, I've tested this and seen the results with my Whoop. This is something that helps to improve my sleep quality. Reading, again, that really helps me. Honestly, it's pretty bad. Anytime I try to read in the evening, I fall asleep so quickly. Well, I guess that's not a bad thing. I know it's an easy way for me to fall asleep. And that's going to conclude this episode. Those are 10 daily habits that can help you to reverse insulin resistance. Like I said, you don't have to do all of them, although I do think that they all are very achievable for a lot of people and a lot easier than a lot of people might think. Like I said earlier, it doesn't have to be a huge diet overhaul. If you focus on these principles that we spoke about in the video, so if you get at least 30 grams of protein in the morning, and then at every meal, prioritize protein in general, make sure you're eating protein, fiber, and fat at the start of your meals. And you don't even have to limit carbohydrates if you are doing these things. Yes, reducing them or swapping them out can make a big difference. But if you are doing the other things we spoke about in this video, then you're going to see results. Heavy emphasis on making sure you get proper sleep. But anyways, guys, thanks for tuning in, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.